This video contains spoilers for Undead Unluck chapter 220. Come back later when you've caught up. Okay, so I'm a couple days on late on this. I'm sorry, I was doing some dog watching and was unable to get the time to actually record this video here. So I'm doing this now a couple days early instead of doing this as a combination video of chapter 220 like I did a few weeks ago with two of the Unchased Arc chapters, because this chapter definitely deserves its own video. However, before I explain as to why it deserves its own video, let's actually do the recap. So we open up the first page with, similar to how last chapter opened up, a flashback to moments, but this time in Andy's life, with Andy doing narration as to what his life was like before meeting Fuko. To which afterwards, we cut back up to the top of the Nyoikinko staff with Andy and Ruin Fine, where the rest of this chapter, apart from like a couple of moments, take place, with the fight between Andy and Ruin being essentially the sole focus of this chapter. With this first part of the fight being a clash of blows between Ruin's attacks and Andy's dead swords, as he's talking about how Ruin is lucky for the circumstances that have led him to this point in his life, with gaining on Ruin, meeting the two Umas, gaining that boost of power from Soul, as all of them have brought him to meet Andy, someone who is going to bring in some change in Ruin's life. And after Blood and Shadow bite onto Andy and talk about how it's all nonsense and Ruin's only salvation working for God and getting rid of all of humans and negators, Andy calls him out on taking the easy way out before appearing somewhere else by regenerating from his tongue, hitting him with a dead falcon that causes Ruin to pass out for an undetermined amount of time. And while he's passed out, he has a little flashback over to a important moment in his childhood, that being a masked figure that we have no information on, berating Ruin for not being able to bring in money and doing proper work due to his disease causing him to burn in daylight, and seemingly having just burnt them with boiling water, which is the cause for the scar that takes place over a lot of Ruin's body. To which, after Ruin gains consciousness, we cut back to current day again, and he's got Blood and Shadow trapped in these blood balls that he's got connected to his back, and starts talking to Ruin a bit more, giving him pointers on how he's able to improve his regeneration and to grow stronger, because as Andy says, life is a cycle of continuing growing. Even for Andy, someone who has finished growing on his own and now has to rely on a certain someone else to be able to continue to get stronger. Which, as he says that, we cut back down to Fuko charging and firing off a soul bullet, flying all the way up in space, hitting Andy, who then gets that and fires it off into Ruin, hitting him with an Undead Unluck bullet, Bad Loop, a soul attack, which causes a never-ending cycle of unluck to strike its opponent until they die, which for Ruin, an immortal, is just forever. To which after that, after consulting Cluffy, Andy releases Blood and Shadow to allow them to return to Ruin, as he is going to need them to stay with him, as they are two Umas that are important in his life, and Andy wants them to take care of Ruin before the Union comes back up to come and collect him. To which we end the chapter with all of the Master Rules descending upon the earth and the declaration of total divine warfare. Okay, so I really enjoyed this chapter. I don't love it as much as the previous couple of chapters. However, that doesn't make it bad. It's just this chapter's a 9 out of 10 and all of them were 10 out of 10s, because again, Tsuka likes to bundle 10 out of 10 chapters right together. However, I still love this chapter. It was a very good chapter, and it was a very great Andy chapter, which it kind of has to be. Seems though there's one page where he doesn't talk, and it's a fucking flashback for someone else. So yeah, start off. This first page, I love that it is a parallel to the first page of the previous chapter with Fuko. As for that page in the previous chapter, it was Fuko talking about the moment where it all started, where everything began and life started on this crazy path. But for Andy, he's talking about everything that predated that, about what his life was like before or meeting Fuko, when he was just undead, before he got that spark of life put back into him by Fuko. And then going on to this next section with the clash of blows between Andy and Ruin, as Andy is talking about Ruin being a lucky guy. The thing that I love about this is Andy is saying this directly from a place of lived experience, because he knows what Ruin has been through to a certain extent of being an immortal regenerative character. He knows that it has to have had some sort of trauma on him, especially because being a negator inherently comes with trauma, so he can understand, hey, you've had bad shit happen to you, however, you've been able to go through these circumstances, and they've all led you to me, someone who can relate to you, understand what you've gone through, and is going to be able to bring in some change. which is kind of what Andy was talking about in the previous chapter. As for Fuko, everything that happened around her was pure happenstance and luck of me and Andy getting to get into the union. All of that was so lucky, but she was able to negate that luck and turn it into fate. And Andy wants to help do that for Ruin. Get Ruin's luck that's led him to this circumstance, negate it, and turn it into fate of trying to help Ruin overcome all of his trauma, or at least how to heal from it. And the thing that I particularly like is what Andy says after Blood and Shadow start talking to him. When Blood and Shadow talk about how Ruin's only salvation is helping God, helping the Master Wolves, getting rid of humanity and negators, and helping bring in this validated world. As Andy calls him out, being like, yo, that's just taking the easy way out. Stop being lazy, man. Grit those teeth. Which is a directly referencing Gurren Lagann. Not entirely. However, I do think it is a Gurren Lagann reference. So, you know what? Now, retaking the peak reference. But I do love that Andy, it's just been like, you're just letting your hatred take over you. You are following your anger, and you are just not trying to process the things that have happened to you. You're being lazy. Because, again, it's something Andy's talking about from his own experience. As we saw in the start of the series in the first chapter, he wasn't really trying to grow or address his pain. He wasn't trying to think about the pain because, as he said, if I'm undead, I couldn't care less about the pain. Instead, he was just living life numb to everything, trying to take the easy way out of finding some way that he can die. Hell, when he went over to the Union, he didn't try to escape for so long because he wanted them to kill him themselves. But instead, now that he's managed to process his pain, process his past, and learn to grow and start to heal from it, he's realised that even though it's a difficult path, it is the one that's led to a better outcome for him, and he now wants to do the same for Ruin. Going so far as to later in the chapter, even talk to Ruin about ways he can improve his regeneration, learning the human body, being able to get his soul to help regenerate his brain to prevent loss of consciousness again in the future. He's trying to show Ruin that growing more in strength will help you, and hopefully let Ruin realise that if I can grow more physically, I can probably grow better mentally and help heal from it. Because again, as Andy says, life is an endless cycle of growth. You're never done growing. No matter what people say, you will always be constantly growing, learning new things, learning new ways to help approach new things in the future or help approach things in your past. No matter what, you will always be growing. Even if it's not physically, you'll always be able to grow mentally and grow even better. And no matter how much growing you do yourself, eventually you are going to hit your limit and you'll have to start relying on those near and dear to you and those who are important to you. Like Andy does with Fuko! This chapter is brilliant for Andy because it shows that Andy in the start of the series isn't exactly too different from Ruin. Start of the series, Andy, he wasn't exactly the best person. He was a bit self-centered and a bit detached from humanity. But instead of taking the path Ruin took of brown nosing the god, he just took it in the self-obsessed wanting things to die of just not really caring about how it affected the others around him as long as it helped approach his death. And now that he's done his growing, he wants to help Ruin because, again, life is an endless cycle of growth, and once you've finished growing yourself, you need others to help you grow, and Andy's trying to be that other for Ruin. And because I quickly skipped over it, I want to look onto this page onto Ruin, because it doesn't give us a lot, but the fact that it doesn't give us a lot, give us a lot. First of all, it's a small glimpse into Ruin's past, specifically on how he got that big scar that is bigger in this loop than it was in the previous loop. And no, it's scar. We know that isn't Ruin, that isn't blood grafted into his body, which means I was wrong. However, I'm more than fine with that because this is much more interesting. And the other thing that I really like is the fact that we don't see or know who it is that's abusing Ruin here. Like, they're bigger than Ruin, so it's some kind of like guardian, but we don't know if it's a sibling, a parent, even if, or might not even be a relative, might just be a guardian that's like taking care of Ruin. Or hell, it could be someone else, like maybe someone Ruin's in debt to and they're forcing them to work because, as they've said, they only care about Ruin being able to bring in money. Whether it be working or stealing, as long as Ruin's bringing in money, then they're going to be able to live. But if not, then the person's just going to kill them. And with all the like darkness coming in from the screen on the side, this is heavily indicating for this to be the moment that Unruin manifests. So yeah, I like this page a lot because it gives us just enough to make me interested in Ruin, something Tezuka wasn't able to do in the previous loop, and I'm so happy about that. These past couple of chapters, this chapter 219 and 218, made Ruin so much more interesting than he was previously, and I'm so excited for when we get more of it. To which, we know we're going to get more of Ruin. I don't think Ruin is going to have his development done off screen. Like, I do think he's going to have a little bit of development as he's in this fucking infinite loop of Unluck, which we will discuss in a second. But I think the main piece of development for Ruin's character, the full turnover from him being a God Brownnoser to him being a helpful member towards the Union, is going to be something done on screen. I just think the starting process of Ruin, like, turning over to the good side will happen off screen. And then, yeah, Infinite Unluck. What? Like, this is insane. This right here, Andy and Fuko completely fucking not talking to each other, just instinctively managed to come up with a team attack that just deals with immortal characters, that deals with immortals that have regenerations. It fucking trapped them in an infinite loop of death. Ruin got Diavolode. Ruin got Diavolode from JoJo's Part 5. Look, mechanically, it's very simple. As we know with souls, after they've been fired off, eventually they will return back to the person who fired them off after the person they fired them off into dies. So Fuko fires off a piece of her Unluck soul into Andy, and then Andy gets that bit of Unluck soul, attaches it to a piece of soul that he's put in his finger, so it's a combination of both their souls, and fire it into them. To which at that point, Fuko's soul is given Andy's soul Unluck, but Andy's soul is passing that Unluck onto the physical body of the person who he shot his soul into. To which then Fuko's soul is continuously giving that piece of soul new strands of Unluck until that soul dies out, which it won't do until that body dies out so it can return to Andy. It is fucking insane. Like, how the fuck do you beat that? Like, I don't really see any way for someone to be able to beat that unless they've got just such good soul manipulation of self that they're able to extract that part of the soul and, I don't know, throw it into someone else, to which they will have to die because it has to hit someone for it to fucking end. Well, I think more specifically, it might have to hit Andy specifically before it ends and destroy his physical body so that way the Unluck ends then. But still, holy shit, this is fucking busted! But then, after that fucking insane piece of tech from Andy and Fuko, we get this sweet little moment with Blood and Shadow, because while they do seem to be leaning more to God's side and sticking for God and talking Ruin salvation being helping God, they do genuinely care for Ruin, because their relationship somewhat mirrors Andy's and Clovey's relationship of, at first, Clovey was just using Andy to try and, like, take him over and whatnot, but Clovey's just a homie now. And Blood and Shadow very clearly do care for Ruin in some way, and while they are still supposed to be working for God and just working alongside on Ruin to enact God's will, I entirely see them just fully going, fuck you, God, I'm with the homie Ruin, you know? So I do like that moment, and I'm so looking forward to seeing more Ruin, Blood and Shadow in the future. I don't know when it is they're going to come in, but when they do, I am so excited for it. I think it's going to be amazing. And then this final page here, despite what Andy said earlier in this chapter with a... Oh yeah, I kind of glossed over that. There was just another fucking title drop in this chapter. That's like, what, the third fucking one we've had recently? But yeah, despite what Andy says earlier of this being the start of Undead Unluck, we are entering the final saga, which I do have a separate video I'm planning to make. I've actually scripted it, I just need to record and edit it, about talking on the length that Undead Unluck has left in this final saga. But yes, we are entering the final saga, which I don't know if this is going to be the official name of the saga. However, Andy does declare that this is the start of Total Defined Warfare, and I'm sorry, I'm calling it the Total Defined Warfare saga because that name's fucking sick. That's a wicked sick name right there. Total Defined Warfare. So yes, all of the remaining 8 Master Wolves are descended upon from Earth, and we are going to be getting most definitely all 8 of them in the next set of crests. as each of them is going to be their own crest. We might have one or two that contains two Master Rules, but I'm assuming most of them are going to be their own separate crests. But yes, the final saga is starting. This is the end of the reunion saga, and next chapter will be the start of the total Divine Warfare saga, in my opinion. And it's a bittersweet feeling entering the final saga for Undead Unluck. You know, like, I think we have plenty of time left. Like I said, I'll discuss it in my separate video, but I do think we have plenty of time left with Undead Unluck. But still, entering the final saga kind of fucking hurts. Undead Unluck's been going on for nearly 5 years now. I've been reading it myself for the past 3 years. I started around November time of 2020. I was a bit late into the game, but entering the final saga, it's gonna be a feeling that we're approaching the end, you know? But also, it's going to be an exciting feeling of these 8 up-and-coming crests, because the 2 Master Rules crests we have had so far of Beast and Language, fuck me, they were some superb arcs. Uma Language is one of my top 5 arcs. It's fucking superb, which is insane because I was expecting to like Beast more. But yeah, if these 8 crests are at least on par with the 2 that we've already gotten, it's going to be phenomenal. The final saga leading up to Ragnarok, it's going to be phenomenal. If any of these are better than either of the ones we've already had, game over for the industry. It's fucking game over. It's a wraps for everyone. So yeah, predictions for next chapter is, I'm hoping we get a little bit of downtime before we get the next set of credits in. More specifically because I want a proper reunion between Andy and Fuko. I fucking need it. And I do think Tezuka is, in this instance, going to give us a chapter to properly have a reunion between Fuko and Andy, because they've not had a proper moment's rest since they fucking started. They've not had a proper moment's rest since fucking Andy came back down to Earth, because they've just been dogging on Ruin. So that's just my prediction for next chapter. Less prediction, more of a hope, but I do predict that we're going to get at least 1 chapter's worth of downtime for Andy and Fuko's proper reunion, because I just need it. Honestly, this chapter is a phenomenal chapter. See, I do prefer chapter 220 over this chapter purely because I think the last chapter perfectly encompasses what Undead Unluck is. But fuck me, this chapter was still phenomenal, especially for Andy. It shows why he's such a great MC to go alongside the MC that is Fuko. Why they're such a brilliant 2 MC dynamic group. It's fucking amazing. Honestly, I cannot wait for this Sunday for the new chapter. I just know it's gonna be just... But until that comes, I cannot wait to see you then. See ya.